When it comes to this NFC West battle that's going to take place between the 49ers and the Rams, who do you think is going to come out on top and why?
See, to me, this is a hard one. And I know that I'm going to pick the 49ers, but for the sake of this fact that the 49ers have gone on a 2-game losing streak, they looked to be one of the stronger teams in the league, and then they go and get blown out by Kansas City by 21, 22 points last week. They allowed 44 points to Kansas City as a whole. They lose to a bad Falcons team. And you're kind of like, wait a second. Wasn't this team, when Jimmy got in there, supposed to be all that? Wasn't this team supposed to be one of the best defenses in the league? I understand that Matt Stafford is not Pat Mahomes. I understand that this Rams team is not the Chiefs, but that can leave a bad taste in a defense's mouth. That could leave a bad taste in an overall team's mouth. Like, damn, like we were pretty badass a couple weeks ago, and now we're sitting here and we're struggling. They go and they trade for CMC. I think Deebo Samuel's battling an injury this week as well. Jimmy Garoppolo has played good but not perfect. And you kind of leave this to a toss-up. The only reason I'm going to go with San Francisco is because history shows that Jimmy Garoppolo is 7-0 against the Rams in his career, as long as he's been the starter in San Francisco. And then the Rams are about to go out and trade Cam Akers. He's not practicing with the team. Obviously, the offense outside of Cooper Kupp, when it comes to the Rams, has been very stagnant and inconsistent. The defense has shown flashes, but not consistently, just like the offense. Jalen Ramsey has been shown that he could be vulnerable this year as well. So I'm going to go with the 49ers as my safe pick. I have my gut feeling that the 49ers are going to win, so I'm kind of like in the same boat here. But I think this one could be a lot closer than their previous games have been, just because, like I said, the 49ers are in a slump. The Rams are coming off a bye. They're pretty rested. And obviously, at the end of the day, this is a division matchup. Both teams know each other very well. So I think the Rams are going to look to break that streak. Sean McVay is due for one of those big offensive creative games. And I'm hoping that Allen Robinson and Tyler Higbee can be incorporated back into this offense a little bit more on a proactive basis, as opposed to we're down by 10, 15 points. We have to force feed everybody because they're doubling Cooper. You get him involved early, get him into a rhythm. Obviously, Cooper Kupp's going to get his targets. There's no getting away from that. But I really do think that you need to take advantage of some of the other weapons that you have, because let's face it, this Rams team did win a Super Bowl last year, and they replaced Odell Beckham with Allen Robinson. I know that depending on who you ask, that could be an upgrade, that could be a downgrade. But at the end of the day, Allen Robinson is there. You paid him a lot of money. You got to use him right. So they need to establish the line of scrimmage. They need to be able to get to the passer in terms of getting Jimmy Garoppolo, because he was sacked 5 times last week. So if the Rams can take advantage, and at the same time, if they can capitalize and get that offense back into a rhythm, I think this game can be a lot more competitive than we had originally anticipated. But I'm going with San Francisco in a nail biter, 21-17, maybe even 20-17, something around there.
Yeah, Kev, to me, this is kind of a make or break game for both teams here, because, like I said in the intro, you're looking at both teams 3-4, 3-3. This is a must-win game as far as I'm concerned for both teams here. And I would say, like, when it comes to the 49ers, there has to be a huge sense of urgency for them, because if they drop this one, they're sitting at a 3-5 record potentially 8 weeks into the year. Now, granted, we would have a whole second half of the season to go, but man, 8 weeks in, you do not want to be sitting at a 3-5 record. And the same applies to the Rams. If they were to drop this one, they would drop to a 3-4 record. So I think this really kind of raises the stakes for both teams here. But Kev, I'm going to go with the 49ers here on this one. And I don't have a lot of faith in this pick, but knowing how they've looked the last couple of weeks, they need to really step it up. And I think this will be the game where they finally get back into rhythm. Because let's face it, the way that they played against the Chiefs last week, definitely not the best performance that they had. It was relatively close at halftime, and then in the second half, they just got smoked by the Chiefs. And Patrick Mahomes just lit it up against that, what was considered a vaunted defense with the 49ers, because let's face it, before that game took place last week, the 49ers had a top 5 defense. You could say arguably they had a defense that was comparable with the Bills as far as being the best defense in the league. And then they go give up almost 45 points to the Chiefs. Nothing to be ashamed of, because it is Patrick Mahomes, it is Andy Reid, but still, like, that's a tough film session the next day when you got to look at, the Chiefs just absolutely destroying you. And I think, they're going to use those mistakes that they made against the Chiefs last week, and they're going to use it against the Rams as far as to be able to get into a motivational mindset to get back into the win column, because I think this is a team that they could have a really good chance to knock off this weekend, despite the fact that they have to go on the road. The Rams have been literally up and down the entire season, and even in their wins, they have not been that great. When I look back to the Panthers game that they had a couple of weeks ago, granted they did win by 14 points, but it's like the Panthers are one of the worst teams in the NFL, and I understand that, the Rams offense, they were able to put up 24 points, but, you know, when it comes to this Rams offense should be putting up somewhere around 30 to 35 points a game, and they've really failed to do that outside of the Falcons game, which took place about a month ago. And you could tell that Matt Stafford, just the chemistry that he has with the offense this year is just not the same compared to last year. And you can maybe blame that on personnel. You could blame that on the fact that he's getting sacked tremendously throughout this year. He's one of the highest sacked quarterbacks in the league through the first 7 weeks of the year. And if they want to be anyway viable in the NFC this year, they're going to have to fix that sooner rather than later. But I've just not sold on this Rams offense yet. And knowing that the 49ers gave up almost 45 points to the Chiefs last week, I think we're going to get an A-plus performance from the 49ers here. That's just how I see this one playing out on the defensive side of the ball. And then when it comes to the 49ers offense, we don't know about Debo's status yet. He could be playing. He hasn't really been practicing this week at all, so he could be a game time decision when it comes to Sunday. We'll see how it plays out throughout the weekend. But even if he weren't able to play, I still got to see what the 49ers are going to do with Christian McCaffrey. He got his first little taste playing running back with them last week. I imagine, with a full week of practice underneath his belt, he's definitely probably a little bit more comfortable with the offense. Still a little bit behind, but I imagine we'll probably see an increased workload for him. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some big games from Kittle, from Brandon Ayuk. These guys are going to have to step up potentially if Debo weren't able to go. And then Jimmy's got to be better than he was last week. There were some plays that Jimmy left out in the field last week against the Chiefs. Probably got to see those in that film session this past week. And, going up against the Rams defense, this Rams defense has been shaky at times. And it has been kind of a point of emphasis this year where there have been times that this team defensively has gotten burnt. And even in the first matchup where, both these teams went up against each other, the 49ers kind of gave it to them. So there's a very good chance that the 49ers could replicate that type of performance going into this one. And I think they are going to win this one in a relatively close battle just because these divisional matches are always tricky to pick. But if I had to put a score on it, I'm going to say the 49ers win this one by the score of, let's say, 27-21. I think it's going to be a one-possession game when it's all said and done. But I think the combined effort of Jimmy Garoppolo, Christian McCaffrey, and then probably Brandon Ayuk offensively, and then potentially forcing some turnovers against Matt Stafford and that Rams offense, which has been shown to be inconsistent at times this year. I think that's going to be the winning formula for them in this one, and it would get the 49ers back to a 500 record, 4-4 at the week 8 mark, and they definitely need this one as far as I'm concerned, because if they fall back to 3-5, they definitely have an uphill battle to get back to at least a decent spot in the NFC before the season does come to an end. So I'm going with the 49ers in this one.